The Temple of the Labyrinthine, or the Palace of the Labyrinth, as the Greeks called it, was built by King Amenemhat III in Hawara near Fayoum Governorate in Egypt. The Palace of the Labyrinth was named after it because it contains more than 3,000 rooms. It was constructed adjoining the Pyramid of Hawara and included 12 lobbies, which were all roofed, 6 of which pointed toward the north and 6 pointed toward the south, and had entryways confronting each other precisely. The whole structure was encircled by a solitary wall. There were likewise 2 sorts of rooms in the structure, a big part of which were underground and the other half on the outer layer of the ground. The lower rooms contained the Lord's altar and the belts of the consecrated crocodiles. All that remaining parts of this landmark as of recently is a few hints of the segments of the upper floor, and the lower floor has not yet been found. The remains of the Maze Sanctuary in the Hawara Desert, nearby the Egyptian city of Fayoum, enlighten amazing stories concerning the most popular sanctuary in antiquated Egyptian history, which numerous old voyagers thought about one of the 7 marvels of the world in old history. And according to a significant number of them, it was better in loftiness and grandness than most old Egyptian sanctuaries and landmarks, including the pyramids of Giza and the Karnak sanctuary. Herodotus, recording his deference for the Maze Castle, says, "It contains 12 covered patios, 6 pointing toward the north and 6 pointing toward the south, the entryways of the principal range confronting the doors of the other. Inside, the structure comprises of 2 stories and contains 3,000 rooms, a big part of which are underground and the other half straight above it. I was taken through the rooms on the upper floor, so what I will say regarding them is from my own perception. However, the underground rooms I can discuss through the report, in light of the fact that the Egyptians in control would not permit me to see them, since they contain the burial chambers of the rulers who constructed the maze as well as the burial places of the consecrated crocodiles. The second-story rooms, going against the norm, I have previously seen, and it is difficult to accept that they are crafted by men. The befuddling and perplexing sections from one space to another and from one court to another were a perpetual marvel to me, as we passed from yard to chamber, from chamber to exhibition, from display to more chamber, and from that point to additional patios. The roof of each room, yard and exhibition resembles the walls of stone. The walls are covered with cut figures, and every yard is grandly worked of white marble and encircled by a line of sections. It has been said that it is hard to receive in return whenever it has entered, in light of the fact that there is something like a maze that right now exists, so the clerics used to enter this royal residence with a piece of paper like a guide to have the option to enter. During the 19th 100 years, the remaining parts of this antiquated Egyptian design were found in Hawara in the Fayoum by Flinders Petrie at the foot of the pyramid of the 12th tradition of Lord Amenemhat III, ruled c. 1860 BC to 1814 BC. The traditional records of a few creators, Herodotus, Strabo, Pliny the Senior, among others, are not completely predictable, maybe due to the weakening of the construction during Old-style times. The design might have been a complex of funerary sanctuaries like those ordinarily tracked down close to the Egyptian pyramids. Records demonstrate that Sobenferu, girl of Amenemhat, made increases to the complex during her rule as Lord of Egypt. In 1898, Hopper's word reference of traditional relics portrayed the design as the biggest of the multitude of sanctuaries in Egypt, the alleged maze of which, be that as it may, just the establishment stones have made do. Herodotus' portrayal of the Egyptian maze motivated a portion of the focal scenes in Boslo Prus 1895 verifiable novel Pharaoh. The development of this extraordinary sanctuary is because of the impact of old Egyptian human progress on Greek civilization, which knew such a construction and fabricated it like it, for example, the perplexing structure with its side sections, which Daedalus worked for ruler Minos of Crete, as per old Greek legend. The ruler needed to make this building a jail for a legendary beast, which was brought in old Greek folklore the Minotaur, a legendary animal that went after individuals and wouldn't stop its maltreatment and obliteration until individuals forfeited consistently 7 of the best young fellows of old Athens and 7 delightful virgin young ladies. Greek folklore tells that Theseus, the child of the Athenian lord, went into the maze and killed the beast before he could advance out through the bending side entries, after Ariadne, the little girl of Minos, furnished him with a wad of string to involve on his way in. Then, at that point, follow these strings when he left so as not to become mixed up in the maze. A few old students of history connect the old Egyptian Lord Amenemhat III, whom they referenced as Lamaris, with this gigantic structure, which they called Labyrinthus, which was truncated in Arabic to Labyrinth. The name was acquired by Greek history specialists from the name of the lead representative's royal residence in the city of Knossos on the island of Crete, close to Greece. The lower portions of the Labyrinth sanctuary incorporate the remaining parts of 12 rulers from the different old Egyptian administrations. History. In old times, Amenemhat III fabricated it on a huge region. This sanctuary was depicted by his period as an immense structure, more noteworthy than the Karnak sanctuary and the Luxor sanctuary. The sanctuary comprised of a few castles. It is said that the quantity of castles was the quantity of territories in Egypt. Between the royal residences were lobbies encircled by segments, which were all in a solitary line. Concerning the entry, there were for quite some time covered, pompous streets that interweaved with one another so nobody could enter or leave the lobbies without a guide or guide. The lower parts incorporated the remaining parts of 12 lords, and the remaining parts of crocodiles, the image of the Fayoum district, were tracked down there. In the medieval times, individuals of Anasa connected with it and utilized it to construct their homes. This incredible structure went on as a quarry until the cutting-edge time. In the advanced period, nobody thought often about it, yet the debacle expanded in the 1900 years, when the stones of the sanctuary were utilized to fabricate the Fayoum rail line. There is pretty much no trace of the castle aside from an area spread with limestone, rocks and stone segments. The Maze Sanctuary, or Maze Royal Residence, is viewed as quite possibly of the best archaeological site that vouch for the significance of the antiquated Egyptians. It likewise has serious areas of strength for with the Greek civilization. It was worked by Lord Amenemhat III and was named so on the grounds that it contains in excess of 3,000 rooms. The castle is situated in Hawara close to Fayoum Governorate in Egypt. The tale of the Maze Royal Residence in Fayoum contains the sanctuary of Amenemhat III, the Lord's tomb, and the sacrosanct crocodile belts. Numerous legends have been woven around this castle. It has been said that it is hard to receive in return subsequent to entering it because of the presence of something looking like a labyrinth. Find out about the story through the accompanying lines. It comprises of 12 corridors and 3,000 rooms, a big part of which are underground and the other half are over the ground. The second-story rooms surpass which man has extricated from ancient pieces, as their roofs are undeniably worked of stones. Every lobby is encircled by segments made of white stones. It has been said that it is challenging to escape the Maze Royal Residence assuming you enter it because of the presence of something looking like a labyrinth. The laborers and ministers who enter the sanctuary should have a guide to receive in return. In old times, Amenemhat III fabricated it on an enormous region. Individuals of his time depicted this sanctuary as a gigantic structure, bigger than the Karnak sanctuary and the Luxor sanctuary. The sanctuary comprised of 12 corridors and 3,000 rooms, and comprised of a few castles. It is said that the quantity of royal residences was equivalent to the quantity of territories in Egypt. Between the royal residences were corridors encircled by segments, across the board line. Concerning the entry, it had long, covered, self-important streets that interweaved with one another so nobody could enter or leave the lobbies without a guide or guide. The lower parts contained the remaining parts of 12 lords, and the remaining parts of crocodiles, the image of the Fayoum locale, were additionally tracked down there. In the medieval times, individuals of Anasa contacted it and utilized it to fabricate their homes. This incredible building went on as a quarry until the cutting-edge period. Be that as it may, in the cutting-edge period, nobody thought often about it, and the catastrophe expanded in the 1900 years, when the stones of the sanctuary were utilized to fabricate the Fayoum rail route line. The development of the Maze Sanctuary in this manner is because of the impact of old Egyptian human progress on Greek civilization in the field of engineering, as Greek civilization knew such a structure as the structure worked by Daedalus, for Lord Minos, ruler of Crete. There is basically no trace of the castle aside from an area spread with sections of limestone, rocks and stone.